evening and welcome to Pal and Posse Presents. I am over the moon tonight to have with me Jon Nowinski from Connecticut Emergency Animal Response Service, otherwise known as E.A.R.S. Jon, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I am very excited. I'm humbled by your presence because you do so many good things. People usually look at me funny when I say, oh yeah, I took a pet CPR class. They're like, you are so far beyond that. And the things you do are just, they're one of a kind. And for anybody who is not familiar, what is E.A.R.S?
Well, first off, it's really good to finally be here. I know we've been trying to coordinate this for a while.
Yeah, we've been at each other for a while, and I will apologize to you in public because I kind of called you out on that group page.
It wasn't a
but
call.
It worked.
Yep.
It worked. You're here. So as publicly as I made that, I'm publicly saying I apologize, but I knew you'd respond, and here you are.
Well, I mean, basically, the Connecticut Emergency Animal Response Service was started several years ago. And our focus is really to help basically animals in the community on all sorts of levels, whether it be disaster response for something like a storm or a hurricane, to medical response for people who have pets that need to get into the emergency hospital, and also basically emergency incidents. So I have said it's very similar to a human emergency response service, which is true. We actually respond to accidents and trauma and things like that involving animals. So everything.
It'd be like the Emergency, the old TV show Emergency for animals.
Exactly. It's really sort of Pet 911. That's the really best way to describe it. We actually do respond 24/7 to, again, all kinds of animal issues, injuries, animals that are stuck in specific, places that need basically technical rescue. And it's everything from small pocket pets all the way on up to horses.
Yeah, some of the pictures we'll show. You want to show some of your rescues now?
Sure, sure. We can run through some of them.
Let's go to the rescue calls. Zach. Yeah, I didn't tell you I was going to be all over the place, did I? You're welcome. So really, every kind of animal is represented in some of these pictures.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people are very surprised about to learn. Our team actually does train in everything from wildlife all the way to pocket pets. We actually just had an emergency the other night involving a rabbit that was pulled out of a house fire.
Oh wow!
We needed to transport it on oxygen to an emergency hospital. Obviously, dogs and cats, of course.
Yep.
But also all the way up to horses. We go through every single year. Members of our team actually go to upstate New York, and we go through a weekend-long training in dealing with large animal emergencies.
Zach, you can scroll through this series. So yeah, you've got basically a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And there's I'm sure there's a different training involved when you're going to do wildlife versus when you're going to do the domestic animal.
And not all of our team members basically do all that. There's a few of us that have, are basically, in it for the long haul, and we really go through all the training that we can. We actually recently did training with canine units, so that's something that we're providing now. But we basically work with individuals, so we have some team members that are small animal people, dog and cat people, horse people, who will get basically dispatched on specific calls.
Sure. So the fact that you're diverse makes it not everybody's called on for everything.
Right.
But you have someone who can respond for everything.
Exactly. And that actually helps us a lot because if we're dealing, even in dogs and cats, if we're dealing with a dog or a cat emergency and we get a call that is, say a wildlife emergency, we can have people that we can sort of separate out to do that. So our whole team isn't involved in one aspect at the same time.
And how many people do you have?
Right now we have about 14 people that are fully trained, responders. They're available 24/7 throughout the week. Everybody, obviously, it's 100% volunteer. So everybody comes from different walks of life, different jobs, different families, things like that. So we kind of have an on-call schedule. And not everybody is necessarily available all the time every day, but they put in as much time as they can.
And I bet you're really busy.
We can be very busy. It's the nature of emergencies, you know, is basically, you know, sometimes we can get no calls in a day, which is wonderful. Other times we can be on the road from early morning straight through the day with multiple calls.
Yeah, that's a handful. So really, again, looking at these pictures, you've done a little bit of just about everything.
Yeah, and all year round too. You know, emergencies don't just happen at the greatest times or in the
Nope.
sunny weather. You know, this time of year we're dealing with a lot of calls for dogs that have gotten injured on hikes and, you know, need somebody to get out there to get them, just as if a person was injured on a hike. In the wintertime, we get a lot of calls for horse emergencies because,
We'll take the camera back,
you know,
Zach.
that's a situation where, you know, horses are very large animals, and if we have something like a blizzard, sometimes the emergency is simply getting food out to the horses because they might actually be stuck in a stall.
Oh yeah, that's something to consider too. We'll take the camera back, Zach.
So, you know, and again, all hours of the night. You know, sometimes it's daytime calls, sometimes we get several calls at night, sometimes it's the middle of the night, just like people.
And, you know, I said to you on the phone, where were you when I had my Daisy, who I had trouble with, you know, her last night home. You would do a transport if a dog was like going home for the last time,
Yep.
or if an owner couldn't, got a big old dog and just can't physically manage to, it's not mobile, get it to the vet.
Yeah,
You'll do stuff like
those
that.
stories, you know, those experiences people have had is exactly why we really started the group in the first place and why it's expanded to do some of those services. You know, not everybody has a car. Not everybody is able to, you know, move their animal themselves. Even a 40 or 50-pound dog, if it's unable to move itself, is a lot for even two people to move.
Absolutely.
You know, so we carry within all of our vehicles some specialized gear. We do have stretchers that are meant for dogs, so they handle up to 200-pound dogs, and they basically look like a small version of a human stretcher. Same concept there. We have slings, so if we have a dog that's, you know, maybe down in the back end but is okay in the front end, we can just help them along. And, you know, and then, you know, expanding into actual technical rescue, if we do have an animal that's trapped or stuck somewhere and actually needs, you know, rescue that way, we can do that as well. So it is sort of very, very wide range now.
And you were just telling me before we went on the air, your own dog found a cat.
Yes.
That
yep.
was, let's get the pictures of Coyote up.
Coyote is actually a Connecticut shelter dog. He was adopted by me from the Plainfield Plainfield Animal Control, rather, in upstate Connecticut. I've had him now for about 4 years. And he's a working dog. He's an Australian cattle dog, so he just has this drive to really want to do things. And the farm that I was volunteering on, I noticed very early on when he would come out with me that he would follow the trails of the animals. You know, he wasn't too interested in the animals themselves, but as soon as they would leave or we'd move them out of the paddock or out of the riding ring, he would be right there following exactly where they were. And a friend of mine that actually works for the state police and trains some of their tracking dogs said that, you know, he seemed to really have that instinct for tracking, and, you know, gave me some suggestions. So we've taken him out on several different setup fields to see how he would do, and he picked up on it right away.
That's awesome.
So he is actually pretty focused on animal sense. You know, I'm sure he could do people sense, but just the nature of what we do,
Yes.
we're around animals so much more. And so actually about 2 years ago now, we got a call from an owner whose cat went missing in their attic. They had an older attic that had space between the floorboard and the ceiling, and the cat had gotten down into there somehow, but they weren't able to find him. So we brought Coyote in and, you know, brought him up into the attic, and you know, I told him to, you know, start searching the attic, and he did, and he was able to actually focus in right on the area that the cat was found.
Wow.
So,
that's
and that
really
was
cool.
under the you know, the floorboards, so we didn't even know that he was accurate.
Yeah, there was no way to know.
Right,
Yeah.
until we were able to go there, and sure enough, that's where the cat was.
That's crazy. I mean, I have that same kind of floor in my attic,
Yeah.
so, but, you know, there's no cats up there, trust me. I hope there's nothing else up there ever either.
Yeah, so he's sort of become our in our way, our little outreach mascot.
Yeah,
he does
and-
a lot of our events with us. And
And you know, everybody loves to see the dog with the animal people.
Right.
He's a good prop, so to speak.
he is, and for us especially, it gives us, an interesting tie-in with the public because we can use him to talk about what a working dog is.
Right.
Most people know dogs from shelters and things like that, but his story, especially coming from a shelter.
I was gonna say he's a good spokesdog.
Right, he's a great spokesdog to show that you don't have to be a purebred dog to do something like working dog.
No, and that shelter dogs definitely are not throwaways, and
Exactly.
they have value beyond just a family pet sometimes.
Right, they can have jobs just like any other dog, and and also just from the pet safety aspect too. Bringing him to events and outreach things. Sometimes he's recognized before we are, so people have seen him around or seen pictures of him on our Facebook page. He's a very poseable dog, so a lot of times if we're highlighting something like a pet first aid kit or something, he's
I was
right
just saying, is he
there.
a willing participant?
He
does,
is.
Does he let you bandage him up and wrap
He lets
his
us
tail
dress him up,
yeah.
and he does come to events and things like that. So he's very workable.
That's a rare find.
Yes.
And he looks like he's a lot of fun and a very good dog. We will take the camera back. Now, as you can see in those pictures, there's a whole lot of equipment that's involved in what you do.
Right.
You have to be prepared for just about anything. You've got this ambulance that I am just so in awe of, and it's pretty much stocked to the gills, as are your personal cars.
It is, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people are very surprised about. We do a lot of work. Probably 80% of the work that we do is actually responding to emergency scenes that already have existing response teams there. So we're working side by side with human response teams, firefighters, police officers, and things like that. So from the get-go, it was very important for us to make sure that we're representing basically an animal response team that is really akin to them. So we do actually, all of our team members do actually have full turnout gear that has been donated to us by various fire departments and things like that. So we all, in our regular personal trucks, we carry turnout gear like you would expect a fire department to have.
Yeah, I was just saying, just
helmets,
like the
safety
volunteer
gear.
fire department, the regular fire, they're all stacked.
Yep.
and
So
loaded.
all of our main team members that carry that are ready to go as soon as they get on site. And then for 18 months now, we've actually had our Rescue 2, which is our animal ambulance. And people are very surprised to see it. It is an actual full-size, formerly human ambulance that we have modified now for animal response. And we can use it for everything from medical response to those technical rescue scenarios. We carry a lot of equipment in that rig that is different, everything from lifting straps for large animals to multiple stretchers. And we really use it not just for responses, but for critical care transports, if we have pets on oxygen, things like that. And also if we have something like a house fire that we're responding to, where there might be multiple pets that have been pulled out or displaced, we have the capabilities there to provide on-site triage for them. We always carry extra leashes and extra carriers that we will hand out to people, who might have obviously come out of a house fire
sure.
and not had those
you
things.
just left your house and everything's inside. You grabbed your pet, not necessarily the carrier. I
Right,
mean,
exactly,
As much as
which
people
we
say,
all do.
Yeah, as much as people say, "Oh, leave a carrier by the door," okay, because that's convenient.
Right, if there's
know.
a fire,
It's
you're
just-
gonna be getting out.
Yeah, it's not realistic. You're not going to go running for the carrier. Let's take a look, Zach, at the vehicles.
Yeah. So we primarily operate sort of 3 vehicles within E.A.R.S. Rescue 2, which is the animal ambulance.
That ambulance
that
is
you see
just
there.
great.
And it was a formerly human ambulance. We were able to work with the fire department to raise the funds for it. They were actually retiring it, and they were going to send it to auction. It was an emergency service we had worked with before, so they knew the kind of responses that we had. And we were able to actually obtain it before they had really stripped anything out of it.
Oh,
so
sweet.
it still had the oxygen lines and everything in there. We basically spent about 3 months after we got it just modifying it for animal use. So Instead of having a bench seat in the back, for example, it actually has a table that we customized
Sure.
and built for a sort of an exam table. But just like a person ambulance, it has first aid supplies, as you know they would carry for humans. We just have animal related supplies. We do have an oxygen chamber on board, so for animals like cats or even small dogs, rabbits like we had the other night, we can actually put them in an enclosed oxygen chamber. And then we have our rescue supplies on there. And then the other thing is our SUVs. We have one primary SUV, which is actually my truck. It's my personal truck, but this is a 24/7 job for me.
Yeah.
So basically, it is stocked regularly with my gear, as well as a little bit of extra things that I have that not all of our team members do have, like a portable oxygen tank and things like that. But all of our primary team members do have their own SUVs that they have stocked accordingly.
And of course, the SUVs are critical just to get places sometimes.
Exactly. In the wintertime especially, or during, inclement weather, even a summer storm, for example, we usually fall back on the SUVs more so than the ambulance itself, because getting there is more important. And especially with something like a dog that might have gotten injured on a hiking trail, sometimes we're actually driving out onto the hiking trails.
Yeah,
So,
not going to do that with the ambulance.
no, we're not going to do it with the ambulance.
Not without having to get towed back out.
So when time is a factor, or when it's something where it's not necessarily a critical transport, but it's more getting to them, we can use the SUVs to get there a lot better. And basically there's a picture there of 3 of our team member SUVs. Again, the nice thing about the SUVs is we can really respond to multiple calls, which has happened before. We've been on transports where we've had a secondary call or something like that. And all of our team members that drive the SUVs and have, stocked their SUVs with the equipment are all fully trained in those aspects.
So somebody's not waiting in an emergency for the whole thing to be done.
Right.
You can disperse.
Right, and we do,
We'll take the camera back,
we
Zach.
cover a large area, obviously. We cover all of Connecticut. And that's, so
We'll take the cameras out.
sometimes it does take, time to respond to somebody, but with the SUVs especially, we can get somebody there as quickly as possible, really for exactly what they need. And even the supplies that our team members carry, they can get on site, and they can do a lot on site. In the event that the ambulance is needed, they can do a lot on site while the ambulance is en route.
Now, can the SUVs, can they transport if necessary?
Yep, they sure can.
There's room with all that gear in there?
There is. Again, all the SUVs are pretty full-size SUVs. All of our team members do carry a form of pet stretcher or pet sling with them. So if need be, if it's not something where it necessarily has to have the ambulance for transport, they're fully capable of stabilizing a pet, getting them on board, and transporting them quickly.
Zach, do we have gear?
I think what most people are going to be kind of surprised about when we talk about the gear is it is actually first response gear.
Yeah, and this is your vehicle.
This is my vehicle.
This is how it is all the time.
Yep, this is an example. It looks a little bit neater. Sometimes things change. We get different ways of stocking things. But everything you see in that picture there is actually what I carry in my personal vehicle. And most of those things are also carried in our primary response team vehicles. So you see basically a toolbox there, which is a technical rescue aspects. Those are things like pulleys and ropes and whatnot. And then we have a triage bag, which is the same as an EMT triage bag. So the same things they have on ambulances. We just have them stocked for pets.
And you have the oxygen masks. We just saw the dog with the oxygen mask.
We carry the oxygen masks. Again, like I actually do carry a full-size oxygen tank on my truck, my personal SUV. So if it's a matter of transporting a pet on oxygen, we can do that, with the SUV quicker. Especially if it's a situation where we need to get that pet right away, or they're not maybe already stabilized at an animal hospital. This way we can just get them loaded up, as quickly as possible and transported. And that's an example of our medical kit. We have a lot of EMTs that actually work with our team. and
That's cool.
you know, a lot of former EMTs and things like
Yeah.
that. So they're often very surprised at what they see. It looks very similar to what
Yeah.
they're used to already.
Just the patients are a little different.
The patients are just a little different.
We'll take the camera back, Zach. Now, you guys, the training that you have to go through is no joke.
It's not, and you know, that is something that we're very. It's sort of the only thing we're really strict about within E.A.R.S.
With good reason.
Right, with good reason. Again, you know, we are working on emergency scenes with actually emergency services. So everybody who is involved in our organization has certain things they have to actually be required to do. Some of them is training on how to work together with fire departments and police departments, things like that. Primarily so that the departments themselves actually know that, you know, if we do actually show up on scene, if we're called out on scene, you know, we know exactly where we need to be set up to be out of their way.
Yeah, you're a help, not a hindrance.
Right, and there was actually an example several years ago of a barn collapse in Connecticut that happened. And, you know, one of the things was that it was obviously a horse town. People had heard of the barn collapse and started coming to the facility with trailers and trucks. And one of the things that came out of that was that they actually had, it was a very small road, and the trailers and trucks were actually blocking the road.
Oh,
so
not good.
had there been another call in town and any of those emergency response teams had to get out of that barn to go to a second call, it would have been very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, thankfully that didn't happen, but that's the kind of thing that we actually do teach in our you know, team, and actually, you know, have certifications that people can complete for that. So knowing if you're responding to a house fire, for example, you know, where's the best way to set up so that you're out of the way of the you know, response vehicles that are there.
And we have some pictures, Zach, of the training.
And you
There's
know,
your stretcher.
yeah, and we
That dog
do.
doesn't look like he's hurt.
We do use a lot of actual dogs and animals in our training. You know, it's one thing to learn about it. It's one thing to see a picture of it or even a presentation about it.
But
It's
to
another
do
thing when
it.
you're actually working with an animal that's thinking. So a lot of our training that we do involves actual animals.
Scroll, Zach.
A lot of it, you know, again, is all sizes of animals. So we do training with horses. You know, we try to expose everybody who comes to E.A.R.S. and gets involved with our team at least to different animals. So if they're a dog and a cat person, that might be great, but they may never have ever experienced being around a horse. They might not be involved in a horse call, but it's
they
important to
might,
know what to
yeah.
do. So we do actually bring them out, and you know, we have several different places we can work with. And
That's a great picture,
expose
by the way.
That is a great picture. That's from one of our last event that we did. That's our whole team that's sort of with the ambulance. Again, one of the things we actually do because of the type of response team we are is we work with canine units. So we've gotten to know some of the local police canine units very well. They came out and did a really awesome demonstration with us that day, and that was kind of the sort of end tail, was just getting a really nice shot with all of them. But again, you know, you might be a dog and a cat person, you might have been around dogs and cats and consider yourself an animal person, but it's always different when you end up in a barn with a horse.
Yeah.
And again, you might not be involved in a technical rescue, but you know, we deal with situations where just having somebody available to be able to lead a horse properly.
Yeah.
I mean, even dogs, you know, there's some dogs that, you know, if you're used to being around your own dog, it's slightly different when you're around other
Yep.
dogs. They're not all the same. You know, they all have their own personalities. They have their
Exactly.
own way of thinking. So something that works for one might not work for the other.
So you need to have that exposure. Zach, we'll take the camera back. We're missing, maybe I didn't load it because sometimes I space out. But okay, so Zach is saying some are missing, but he
That's
didn't say
okay.
anything beforehand. You guys actually have like a dummy horse.
We do.
And I had a picture of, you know, the dummy horse and somebody with a sling that you sent me.
Yep.
And I don't know if I just forgot
we do.
or what I did.
One of the things that we do frequently, because it's harder to do with an actual animal, is working with stuffed animals and dummy horses and things like that that are full size.
Yeah, this is like a life size. You
articulated.
can see like it almost looks like, you know, the dog dolls that the legs move.
Yep.
That thing was just crazy. And I apologize for missing that picture.
That's actually a training. That's from the training that we do every year up in New York. It's a weekend-long training, and they have one of these basically dummy horses, which is it's a full-size plastic horse, pretty much. It looks like a giant Breyer horse.
Yeah, it looks like Mr. Ed.
and one of the things about it is they can put it in any kind of situation. So this past summer when we were up there, they actually, one of the things we did was based upon some of the flooding that had happened in the Midwest and Texas, and so we did a water rescue with it, and they actually took the whole horse mannequin and they pushed it into a river, and they had the teams
Now
get
go
together.
get it.
Yeah, they had the teams get together, and that was exactly it. It was putting it into a situation and saying, okay, now what are you going to do if you have to do that in real life? And we do that.
And the horse is going to struggle, whereas the
Exactly.
dummy isn't.
It was still difficult with a non-struggling.
Yeah.
And we do that with some of the stuffed animals. We have full-size, dog stuffed animals, cat stuffed animals, and some of our training involves basically taking that animal and putting it into a situation, and then getting everybody within the team to work together and rescue it as if it was a living, breathing animal.
It becomes play acting, so to speak, but it's at least you knew what you were doing then, and you can, if you keep your head cool,
Exactly.
apply it going forward. So in the last couple of minutes, let's talk about if someone wanted to volunteer, how would they reach out to you?
Well, there's a couple ways. Basically, we are online. We're a very social organization, so we do have a Facebook page. People can go on the Facebook page and find out all sorts of information about where we're going to be, events we're going to be at, pictures from our trainings. We try to put galleries up there pretty regularly of some of the trainings that we do.
Isn't it a little early, Zach?
And, so people can go online and contact us, come see us at an event, and we
And
have...
you're going to be at Bikers Against Animal
We are,
Cruelty?
yep, on the 19th, I
The
believe
19th,
it is.
and
Yep.
Bow Wow Bark in the Park on September 2nd. Zach is kind of rushing me. I don't think it's... The clock in here says something different. Okay, well, we're going to argue about time. Anyway, and if someone needs your services...
Yes, they can reach out to us 24/7. Again, our contact information is actually on the website, and they can basically get through to us at any point in time.
Alrighty.
The one thing I'll say about that just quickly is if somebody calls and does get our voicemail, just leave a voicemail because one of our team members will get back to you right away.
Okay.
Sometimes we're out on a call or something like that.
All right, we're going to say goodnight because Zach is forcing our hand. Thank you, John, very much.
Thank you for having
We're going to say
me.
goodnight, Pound Posse Presents style. Do what I do. We're going to say peace,
Peace,
love,
love,
and dogs.
and dogs.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching.